Greetings, fellow book enthusiasts. Welcome back to Timeless Tales and Thoughts. Yesterday was May 4th, and if you are a geek like me, you know that means it was Star Wars Day. I didn't do too much to celebrate. I just kind of spent the day hanging around, wore my Star Wars earrings, one of my Star Wars shirts. I did end up going down to the local coffee shop, Haven Coffee Roasters, because they have a special menu every month. And this month it is Star Wars focused. I enjoyed a nice, yummy, delicious, chewy chocolate chai latte and a Rebel croissant. It was huge. I had to share it with my husband because it was enormous. I'll see if I can kind of slip in some pictures because I didn't take any video yesterday while we were down there, just enjoying time together and enjoying our treat and taking in all the Star Wars sights and sounds at the coffee shop. It was really nice and relaxing. But other than that, I didn't really do much to celebrate Star Wars Day. And as much as I would have loved to have gone down to like Disney's Hollywood Studios and celebrated, it spent the whole day at Galaxy's Edge. I'm smart enough to know that that is where everybody probably went, and it was going to be super crowded and not a great experience for the day because it's not as big as it looks when you see it in person. I mean, it's big, but it's not. If you put tons of people in it, it gets small really fast, and I knew it was just going to be crowded and crazy, and wasn't really going to be able to do much anyway. Even though, being unemployed right now, it would have been fun to go down and celebrate the geeky Star Wars way. But I settled for a nice, quiet, relaxing coffee and pastry kind of day. But it also got me thinking back to when I used to just read Star Wars books all the time in the late 90s, early 2000s. How many of you remember the expanded universe before Disney took over? I just suddenly got really nostalgic yesterday thinking about those stories, and I kind of started digging through my Star Wars memorabilia box. And I found a few. I still have some. I know I gave a bunch away to one of my cousins years ago when I was doing all my moving back and forth from New York to Florida. And I gave a lot of them to her so that she could enjoy them too. But I did end up keeping some of my favorites. So I thought today that I would share with you some of my favorite of the expanded universe. Now, you got to keep in mind when I'm showing you these books, they may or may not exist anymore. I don't know because they're not canon anymore since Disney created episodes 7, 8, and 9. These books are kind of irrelevant, these stories. But back in the 90s, late 90s or mid 90s, I think a lot of these were published in the mid 90s actually, and the early 2000s before Disney took over. Disney, I love you, but I don't love what you did to my Star Wars because I totally live in the original trilogy is the best trilogy camp. And I really enjoyed these books that came after because they followed the natural progression of what should have happened, in my opinion. So Wicket here and I are going to share some of my favorites of the expanded universe stories from the late 90s, early 2000s. And I remember one of my absolute favorites was the courtship of Princess Leia, where Han and Leia had to really decide, hey, is this relationship right for us? And she was supposed to marry somebody else. Prince Isolde, I think his name was. It's been a while since I've actually picked these books up and thumbed through them. But as you can see, I mean, I'm going to have to tape this one back together. and ultimately in the end, Han Solo was like, no, you know what? I'm going to fight for her. I really do want Princess Leia to be part of my life. And I loved every second of this story. And then, of course, the next it follows the progression is the Thrawn trilogy, that Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and Last Command. This was a trilogy of books. They went together. It was the next step of Han and Leia's relationship, where they were expecting their first set of children, twins, a boy and a girl, not just one boy, Ben Solo. There were actually twins. And further on down the road, they had their son Anakin in the original extended universe series. And this series also, this is where we first meet Admiral Thrawn. I know he's popular in some of the more recent Disney Plus series. He's been introduced there, but this is where we first met him. And this is where we first met one of the best characters ever created for the EU in the stories, Mara Jade. She was a kick-butt character, and I loved her character so much. I'm disappointed she never made an appearance after Disney took over. But then again, I'm disappointed that Han and Leia's kids didn't make an appearance in the way that the books laid them out to be, the twins and then Anakin afterwards, instead of just the one son who turned to the dark side. They followed it a little bit. Does one of their sons turn to the dark side? Yes, he does. But then there was their daughter to save the day. So I'm kind of disappointed Disney didn't kind of go that direction. But so these were some of my this series was probably actually my favorite of all of them. This particular trilogy, I really enjoyed these. Along with those, keeping again with the theme of Admiral Thrawn, and maybe I just like Timothy Zahn's stories. I don't know. No. But Spectre of the Past and Visions of the Future, they were together. They weren't a trilogy, they were a duo set. And it explored the relationship between Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade. And ultimately, it led to their relationship taking the next step and getting married and having a bright future together that they could. And that was exciting to read. I think I even still have the comic book series that actually showed Mara Jade and Luke Skywalker's wedding. And then I know there were some books after this that does not look like I held on to, where Mara Jade and Luke Skywalker finally had a son, who, by the way, that was Ben, not the Ben in the Disney version of the stories. So more Thrawn and more Mara Jade in this particular duo set of books. And then I also, looks like I hung on to this book here, Tatooine Ghost. This takes place a little bit later down the way, and it goes through, and Han and Leia are on a mission, but at the same time, she ends up finding what's it called? Hold on. A diary? I think it was a diary of her grandmother. So would have been Anakin Skywalker's mom. And so they kind of go she kind of gets to explore the story of her grandmother, and learn secrets, family secrets. And it was cool, and it was adventurous. And honestly, since the new Disney's, and they've kind of rearranged the expanded universe so much, I haven't really read a lot of the books. I think I have a few that looked interesting that I wanted to read. And I know they put out a few that kind of completely like make these irrelevant. Like, I think they redid the whole love story between Han and Leia in a book called The Princess and the Scoundrel, I think it was. And I was like, no, I'm not going to read that, because I read the original, what it should have been, the courtship of Princess Leia. So if you read these stories back in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s, which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments what your favorite story of Star Wars expanded universe was, or extended universe. I forget. I think it was expanded universe. And just let me know what your favorites were, and if you are in the original Star Wars trilogy camp, or if you really liked the prequels or the new ones that Disney did. And if you enjoyed these videos, please like, subscribe, and happy reading.